everyone. It's Will here. I recently got asked to do another walkthrough of the To Live a Lie headquarters. I know you can't follow me on this computer screen, but it's back through there. Uh, Decided to do something different today. I'm an IT person by day, and I went to an open source conference, and a lady uh, talked about developing your own brand, which I know that sounds like BS business stuff, but she talked about posting on medium.com and some other sites, and it made me think about posting on BuzzFeed. So I made a BuzzFeed post about the top 10 power violence albums, and I just picked 10 off the top of my head, and I know I got a little hate for some things I missed and some things I skipped over on purpose, but I just wanted to go over some of these because I thought it'd be cool to do a video. And my first pick on this list is McGregor Grind Crusher, which I know it sounds like a self-serving pick, and there are two and a half self-serving things that I picked on here, but I honestly think that this album is just really memorable. Uh, the rap track is, I think it's cool. I mean, the artwork is, there was the obviously the Scion version artwork that looked like uh, what do you call it? The Grind Crusher earache record, but the one that I like's the one that Clint did, the cut and paste one that you've seen on other McGregor Grind covers, and the production of this album was really cool. It was done by, I can't talk anymore. It was recorded by Kevin Bernstein from Triac up in Baltimore, and was recorded all to analog. I just thought it was a good sound. It sounds heavy. I'm sure a lot of work went into recording an analog. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is Iron Lung White Glove Test. Uh, if any of you have seen Iron Lung, they're just really impressive live. Uh, I didn't see them that long ago, but their earlier albums just sound real screamo or etc. violence to me, and I think in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe that's too long of a time frame. In the last maybe 5 years or so, they've really gotten a real heavy, like Neanderthalic sound to them, and so that's on my list. I picked this album up live, and it came. I haven't been able to play it together, but it came with a separate noise album that you can play side to side and have that play at the same time with the normal album, and it's supposed to lay together really well. So that's a great album. I mentioned Dead Language on my notes on this BuzzFeed post. They're worth mentioning. Um, as you'll see as I go down, I include a lot of Deep Six and West Coast bands, and Dead Language was a cool mashup of Iron Lung and Pig Heart Transplant and Walls. Sorry, there was a wall from here. And Gas Chamber folks with Andy Beattie singing. Um, so I had a thought to put that on here, but just really tried to be concise and get some similar bands sort of lumped on top of each other. But White Glove Test was a solid album, so when I was putting this together off the top of my head, I'm like, that's the one on my list. Um, Next on here, I have Sidetracked Uniform. This is a completely self-serving uh, mention on here, but this this EP is just amazing. I feel very lucky that I was able to release it. Uh, I wish I had been better at doing artwork because I did the cover for this and the inside artwork, and I like what I've done on parts of it, but I think I could do some other stuff a little bit better. Uh, that first song just like kills me. It's about a family member being misdiagnosed and just quick and just blast, 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 no pulse. So that's a really grim, sad, intense outpouring there. After that, Sex Prisoner 10 Hauser Gate. Uh, this is my half self-serving item. I put out some of their early stuff, including their EP, and I sort of mentally hated on this LP because I'm like, well, my EP is great, but I finally came around and I did help put a tape out of this, but the songs are just heavy. Like I'm glad I came around on this album. It's great. Uh, really nice guys. Really good album. You probably should own it. Next, Low Threat Profile. I remember hearing the hype about this before it came out. Uh, Anyone who listens to this kind of music is very familiar with No Comment. And hearing about a new band with Andy Beattie in it, alongside with Chris Dodge and Bob from Deep Six and Matt Domino from Infest, uh, is really exciting. They had a one song a long time ago on, I want to say, Reality 2 Comp, and that's the only thing anyone had heard of this band. And then uh, I guess a couple years later, this finally materialized, and the there's there's a series of three. There's product number 1, 2, and 3. Uh, One is definitely my favorite. 2 is really good. It's an LP. I wish I liked it as much as this material, and I honestly haven't listened to product number 3 very much. So product 1 is at the very top of my list. Uh, After that, Despise You's West Side Horizons, and I almost don't know what to say about this. Like, Despise You just is a great band. I feel like half my band t-shirt wardrobe is Despise You shirts. Uh, every time I've seen them, they've come and crushed it. Um, and they share members with Gasp and Crom. So I mean, just the mention of those three bands is amazing. I'm a huge fan of all of those. I've luckily been able to, as a record label person, been able to do something with each one of these bands. So I feel really special, and it's amazing that this one group of friends or musicians all put together this amazing music. So they're all totally different too. Gasp is, if you haven't heard Gasp, I guess you're on YouTube watching this, you might not know much about power violence or similar genres, but uh, Gasp was a stranger band uh, incorporating noise elements, and I don't remember if they actually did tape loops and stuff like that, but it's just a insane bizarro mismatch, and it gets heavy. It's great. And Crom have this really interesting like Viking metal theme to their stuff. I've never had the pleasure of seeing Gasper Crom live, but I'm sure they're crazy experiences. Let's move this along. My number 4, Capitalist Casualties Disassembly Line. Um, Honestly, like, I mean, I didn't put this in here as something that I don't like. This is an amazing album, but just have been thinking a lot about Sean Elliott dying earlier this year. It's just really sad. And Capitalist Casualties are one of the original sets of power violence bands, so no list would be complete without it. So this is just a really good full length. I remember uh, there always being copies locally in a record store here, and I was always excited to see um, those around town and being able to get them. Following that is Infest No Man's Slave. Uh, just a great album. Um, I feel like I always sort of mentally write off Infest and Spaz, and then I'm like, I go back and revisit them and realize they are that good. And uh, I feel like the production value, I know No Man's Slave is a little newer than Slave, uh, but I feel like this is the one that I always go back and pick up because it just sounds big and full. And even though it's a little later into them being a band, I mean, I guess they're a band now still, but in their more heydays, this is one of their later albums. But I feel like this is just a quality release. Behind This Tongue is a great track that I'm constantly, whenever I'm in a band, I'm like, let's cover this, let's cover this. So maybe one day I'll be able to convince some friends to cover that song. Ooh, I didn't plan this, but I can actually grab this record. I don't think I'll be off screen for too long for it to be annoying, but I'll introduce it by showing it. So number 2, Neanderthal. Sorry, I've got bad ring wear on here. I don't know why. Uh, Fighting music. Um, Fighting music. I want to thank Justin Aber, who was nice enough to he gifted me this record, which is crazy because I don't remember the going rate of it lately, but this is one of those hard to find, amazing must have, but it's just not easily accessibly easy to find. There was a recent uh, complete fighting music LP that came out, and that's very much worth finding and grabbing because that'll give you everything. Um, but this album has Eric Wood on it, Joe and Matt from Infest. Just, it's great. We're at number 2, so this is some of my favorite stuff in the genre. I've done a label that does a lot of power violence, so I would hope that I'm some kind of expert. I probably am nowhere close to it, but from my side of things, this album is second best, which is pretty good. Uh, Before I go on to number 1, I know that there are a lot of things missing on this list, some of them on purpose. I know I noticeably did not include Crossed Out on here, which is one of my favorite power violence bands. I guess that's sort of my fault. It definitely may have led to so many people going through and so I made this BuzzFeed post today, and it's gotten 2,000 views. Um, so that's insane. But I think part of it was people either thinking this list is incomplete, which it is because I only chose 10 things and made some omissions and chose some albums that I would say most people would not like. Uh, I'm sure some people wouldn't mind sliding off the Magruder Grind record or the Sidetracked or the Iron Lung being newer albums and newer musicians. Low Threat Profile is fairly new, but those are all people that have been around this from the early days, the early 90s. Um, so I'll go through some opinions now, and we'll see. Um, I have a hard time being. I have a good. I'm good at being critical. I have a hard time saying mean things, so I'm going to skip over the bands that are mentioned, or I might just mention them, but I'm not going to tell you uh, some of my real negative feelings towards things. But let's see. Let's see what people are saying about this top 10 list. All right. I could probably show you my view while I'm scrolling and do a split screen here. Uh, I'm not really a pro at producing stuff on this, but I thought this would be a fun adventure to try to provide something here. So I'm not going to necessarily show people's names and comments, but I'm going to scroll through and see what we got. And then after this, I'm going to tell you what my number one is, assuming that you haven't found the BuzzFeed article. You're probably just on YouTube trying to learn about a genre of music, or you accidentally clicked this thinking that my beard looked funny, which it doesn't. It's pretty awesome. Um, so the first comment on here is actually, I know I wasn't going to mention names, but it's my friend Matt from the band Chest Pain. Uh, he posted that I should have a trigger warning on this, so he didn't mention any specific bands, but I guess he thinks this is pretty ridiculous. First post is someone linking Jakobse. They're a German power violence band, and this is actually a really good album. Tans Grosny Tans, um, which came out. I'm not having researched any of this. This is off the top of my head. I think this is the album that came out on CD and Haunted Hotel Records put out on vinyl. That might just have been the covers album, but Jakobse, I got to see them around Memorial Day up in Baltimore with just like the craziest stack of bands ever. I'm not going to waste your time. I know you want to hear who number one is. Uh, the same person linked Vaccine, Human Hatred. Uh, really good band, straight edge, uh, like Boston area. I don't know if they're actually Boston people. It's Will Killingsworth, who used to run Clean Plate Records, was in the band Orchid, and does a studio and does mastering and does a whole lot of stuff. Just really impressive musician. Uh, Honestly, this is probably my favorite band of his. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I I love these two bands mentioned. Um, I don't know if I put them in my top stuff. Uh, I listened to that Yakapse covers album a whole lot. It's really entertaining. It's got like heavy. It's not in a grind style. They cover pop punk, and it's called Pop Punk Alienation. And sorry, something beeping in my house. Uh, Maybe someone's backing up somewhere. Who knows? But anyway, I'll try to tune that out. The pop punk album's great. They don't play it heavy, but they have instruments that generally sound heavy even without a lot of distortion. So it's a great listen. Uh, Someone posted ARM, uh, Arm Apathetic Ronald McDonald. Uh, I put out a split. Ooh, it's the UPS guy. That's who that was, and he's driving off. And my hair looks funny on the side, so I'm gonna fix it. Um, Familiar with the band? I put out a split with them in Final Draft. I think this is a newer album. I'll have to check it out again. Uh, I don't know if they've had the impact that some of these other bands have. Someone backs the Sidetracked EPs. Uh, Someone asking me why I chose McGrew Grind over Lack of Interest. Just a creative choice. I guess I made a mistake by saying Chris Dodge playing in. I guess I got some bad information from Discogs. Chris Dodge isn't on Low Threat Profile recordings. He just has played with them live. Someone hating on the lack of Spaz. I thought Spaz was an easy choice, so I didn't choose Spaz. I'm trying to think which Spaz I would choose. I'd probably choose something a little stranger than like Crush, Kill, Destroy. I really like the split with Slobber, and the split with Toast. Uh, it'd be sort of weird to mention a split in a stack of mainly LPs and full lengths and a couple EPs, but those would be my picks. Hell Nation, which Cheerleaders of the Apocalypse, good album. Uh, Charles Bronson, easy choice. Probably the first power violence band that I've heard, aside from I was a street punk kid at some point and had what do you call that? Short music for short people with which has Spaz on it. So I've heard Spaz a long time. Also, Spaz gets mentioned on a Dr. Octagon album, which is really cool, and seeming a strange connection. Someone just made a new post. I'm gonna try to go through this faster. Youth Attack. They must be talking about the Charles Bronson record. I see it now. They just didn't put any dashes or hyphens or anything. Lack of Interest. Locust. I'll be as nice as I can. I like the Locust at one point. They're not my favorite band at the moment. I think they're more on the screamo side of things. Maybe screamo violence. Idiots Parade. I'm familiar. I don't remember that they've left a big mark. I'll have to go check them out again. Someone said the soundtrack of their youth, and someone hating on the lack of Man is the Bastard, which is an oversight. Honestly, the thing that stuck out the most to me between Man is the Bastard and Bastard Noise is, I think, Skulldozer. I didn't think about this till now. Skulldozer is a great album. I know it's a newer one, and it probably should be on this list. Someone was about to jump on there and hate on the lack of Downsided. Yeah. Um, yeah. So let's see. I posted this on the To Live a Lie page, and I do a meme page, so there should be some funnier responses on the meme page, I hope. Someone saying no Disrupt. Disrupt is an amazing band, but I consider them like a grind crust band. More Man is the Bastard, Charles Bronson, love for what my number one is, which I'll get there. You'll see. You just have to deal with me blabbering for a little bit. someone who ran a label that helped put out some stuff on for Sidetrack, so that's cool. Uh, I also put out some Sidetracked. Spaz, Crush, Kill, Destroy. That's a great one. Charles Bronson. People hating on my choice for Magruder Grind being grind violence. Yeah, I could have not had him on there, but I just really like that record. Low Threat Profile being top notch. Yep. No Gasp, no Crossed Out. Yep, yep. I'm trying to think. I probably could throw some runners up in here. I should have prepared before hitting record for any of this, but uh, even though I'm an awkward, quiet, shy guy, I can sort of talk from the head a little bit. It'd help if I had records in front of me or uh, my playlist. I guess I can pull up my playlist and sort of cheat a little bit. Some of these don't count because I put them out and I don't want to say them. I actually don't have that much power violence on here. No one mentioned Agents of Satan. They're great live. I had the luck to also see Plutocracy, who was a great band. Another fallen musical brother. I didn't have any connection to him like I did with Sean, but Stinkweed Kindred was in that band and died, which is sad. Great musician. Yeah, I think I've wasted enough of your time trying to spitball some stuff. There's lots of good stuff out there in this genre. Lots of stuff overseas that you have to dig around and come across. There's a band from Japan called Flash Gordon that's a little more obscure. That's quality stuff. So I think we can go ahead and jump into number one on my list. It was hard to pick between their two EPs, which that might give you a hint. And as I accidentally said earlier, I didn't put Crossed Out on here. They only had one EP, so that wouldn't be them. But top of the list is No Comment, and I chose Downsided. Common Senseless is great, but for whatever reason, I just pick up the Downsided EP. I'm a nerd and I have original copies, and I've got the Deep Six represses because Lord knows I need all the records in the world all collected here. But No Comment, one of my favorites. Crossed Out should have been on this list, one of my favorites. Neanderthal, Infest, all these are just, to me, top shelf bands. So that's my top 10 best power violence albums. And how about you jump into the comments and tell me what I missed? Tell me how you hate some of these bands and maybe they weren't good live. Tell me, I'd love to hear from someone who's actually seen Low Threat Profile. They only played 2 shows, and there's like a 3 or 4 minute clip of them playing on YouTube. I went out to Chaos and Teos in 2011 to try to see them and Alarm play, but unfortunately both bands weren't able to play. Had a good time at the fest that year. Got to see Extortion, Youth of Today, Just a stack of great bands, so I don't regret going out there. But um, yeah, so if you haven't heard any of these bands, I suggest going out there and tracking them down. Unfortunately, a lot of this is out of print. Um, let's see if I can spit off where to find some of this. So, Magura Grind Crusher, you can not anymore get that from me. It's sold out. There was a European pressing on RSR, so I think you can get it on CD and maybe still vinyl through Sandro. Iron Lung White Glove Test, I don't remember if that's on Iron Lung Records, but I'd say that's a good place to track it down. Sidetracked Uniform, you can get that from me. That's real easy. Um, I'll be a jerk and to livealie.com/store. Got red vinyl, it's cool. Sex Prisoner Tannhauser Gate, and Low Threat Profile, if it's still in stock, and Infest, that's probably not in stock, and the Neanderthal single-sided LP with all their stuff, and No Comment Downsided repress. You can all get through Deep Six Records. Capitalist Casualties was originally on Slappingham. I know too much information in my head here. And I think it got repressed by 6 weeks. Despise You, the LP, came out, and again, this is off the top of my head. I think the last pressing of that was on some like Moonforest Productions, some label like that. So that's all 10. You can find most of these. Like I just said, some of them are hard to find, but you should check these bands out and support them if you can. All right, that's my top 10, and I'm sticking to it.